clearly nothing but a PR stunt. This is purely for the cameras, it's purely for the exposure, and it's purely a tactic.
Well, we got some new polling data. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, the polling data doesn't quite look like the last Main Street poll. We also have Jivani breaking the news cycle, going down to America, meeting with Donald Trump, JD Vance, as well as some business counterparts. The Liberals don't like this. They don't like the idea of Conservatives going down there and potentially working out something and getting a deal, taking away their boogeyman. We also got some other news in Stellantis. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, what do we have here? Look at this polling data. 40% for the Liberals, 38% for the Conservatives. I wonder what happened with that Main Street research poll. We got Shreyas modeling this out here. So 162 seats for the Liberals, a much worse minority government, 140 seats for the Conservatives, +3 to the Bloc, +7 to the NDP, getting their official party status back, which they need 12 seats for that. This gets even more interesting because Shreyas posting here, Angus Reid is calling out Main Street Research on their poll. Just as a refresher, this is the poll we're talking about. Main Street Research, 51.1%. Plus almost 10% for the Liberals and 35.5%. This was their last one that came out. A bit of an outlier at 50% and Conservatives at 35%. This encompasses his Davos speech going to China and also his grocery rebate. So it was unsure if that gave him a bump or not, but it turns out it doesn't seem like it. So over on LinkedIn, Shreyas found this. We've got Angus Reid here taking shots at Quinto from Main Street Research for that poll. Here's a little note on polling methodology. I've come to the conclusion that interactive voice response, IVR, polls should largely be ignored, and that's what this poll was. This Main Street poll is an IVR. People increasingly use blocking to stop unwanted calls and will simply hang up if they answer a phone and find a computer voice on the other end. I do that. If there's a computer voice, I'm out. The result is a massive overcounting of elderly folk, as is evident in the most recent Main Street survey here. Almost 2/3 of respondents are over 65. And we've got Quinto here, Maggie from Main Street Research responding. Angus seems to forget that IVR polls outperformed his poll in every recent election. Not one or two, but 3 to 5 IVR pollsters top the list in Ontario and nationally in 2025, including Main Street at number 1 nationally and a very close number 2 in Ontario. Yes, the weights of 4 are on the high side in this sample, but not typical of IVR or Main Street polls. Our max weights are usually less than 2. So I think he's basically admitting here that this was not a good poll. It's not accurate of what Canadians really feel. But this isn't about methodology or quality. It's purely about competition in the market. Mr. Reid isn't being forthcoming about his true motivation for commenting on our work. If we were a member of the industry association, this type of comment would be against professional code of conduct. Going back to the innovative research poll, we're sitting at 40 versus 38. I think this is really where Canadians are at. Well, now that the leadership vote is over, the real polls can be released. So the Main Street is a massive outlier then. Fake news poll, we know Carney's at 61% right now and everyone in Canada hates Pierre. Yeah, right. Wait for the new polling from Main Street. Liberal better ensure the check clears before its release. You're not going to believe this. One day after Mark Carney announces his big new EV strategy, what do we have? Stellantis sells their stake of the Ontario battery factory to South Korea's LG Solution. Stellantis is getting out of here. They sold basically this is the next star battery factory, as Melissa pointing out here. And you'll notice this is going to South Korea. I think this has something to do with a big submarine deal that's coming. They're probably going to be announcing this soon, that South Korea will be building those multi-billion-dollar submarines. And with that, we've got Stellantis sells their stake in the battery plant for $100 and writes off a massive multi-billion-dollar deficit. As Mario pointing out here, they're taking a $26 billion hit on that to change course on EVs and believe they're changing over to Hemi V8s. And meanwhile, Mark Carney wants to use our tax dollars, $2.3 billion, to subsidize EV sales. This is all just to boost Brookfield sales, create an endless supply of customers for Brookfield, and boost his carried interest in his Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1. It's disgusting what they're doing here. With that, we've got this article here on the Globe and Mail. Ottawa says it won't allow Chinese EVs to be used for spying on Canadians. Yeah, right. The government cannot be trusted.
Stellantis shares plummeted just under a quarter early Friday. Investors sold off after it announced $26.5 billion of charges in the second half of last year. The charges came due to Stellantis scaling back its electric vehicle ambitions. The sell-off put shares close to their lowest level in almost 6 years, and the stock will see its biggest one-day drop on record if the losses hold. The second half charges follow similar, albeit smaller, write-downs by rivals including Ford and General Motors. That's as many Western automakers retreat from battery-powered models in response to the Trump administration's policies and soft demand. Stellantis CEO Antonio Filosa started downsizing the Fiat and Jeep makers' EV ambitions last year when he took over. Previous boss Carlos Tavares' strong bet on electrification resulted in a sales decline in Europe and in the group's former profit powerhouse, the North American market. Stellantis will release final second half and full year 2025 results later this month.
So Stellantis stock is completely cratered, and this is how they're covering themselves. Just write this off, get out of there, go back to making ICE vehicles. And we've got Raquel Dancho posting this: Stellantis phasing out plug-in hybrid auto programs in North America. And this is one of the ones that Carney was giving subsidies for. Well, where are they now? As Raquel is pointing out here, despite pledging up to $16 billion in subsidies for Stellantis, the wheels are falling off the bus of the liberal EV strategy. And yet just this week, they've committed billions more to EVs, including those made by foreign competitors. A strategy without a basis. Mark Carney knows exactly what he's doing here. He's not invested in Canada. He does not care about our country. We got the CEO of Stellantis, Antonio Filosa, commenting here: the rest we have announced today is a part of the decision process we started in 2025 to once again make our customers and their preferences our guiding star. The changes announced today largely reflect the cost of overestimating the pace of the energy transition that distance us from many car buyers' real-world needs, means, and desires. Canadians and Americans en masse do not want the EVs. The numbers don't lie. It's 10-12% of people buying them. Got an update here from Jivani in Washington.
Hello, Canada. I'm here in Washington, D.C., where I've been having some very productive, promising, and positive conversations with the White House, with the State Department, with senators representing border states that we do a lot of business with in Canada. And I got to tell you, I'm feeling hopeful and optimistic that we can get something really good done for Canadian workers and businesses. Might take some time, but I really believe that the doors are open here. Positive conversations are possible. I have made some jokes about the United States becoming Canada's 11th province. Americans don't seem that interested. They seem happy with their country, but I am really hoping that I can bring my insights and what I've learned here back to Ottawa, share them with Prime Minister Mark Carney and Minister Dominic LeBlanc. And this can be the beginning of a truly nonpartisan approach to working with the United States. This is not a partisan issue. It's not about liberals or conservatives. This is about Canadian workers and Canadian businesses and how we can make sure our economy is growing and our economy is thriving. I will be heading home tomorrow, back to Bowmanville, Oshawa North. But before then, I will be meeting with some business leaders that I'm really looking forward to hearing from, as they are job creators that employ thousands of Canadians. And I can't wait to get back home this weekend to see my wonderful niece and nephew. God bless you. God bless Canada.
Seems like Jivani's making more progress than Carney's team. No surprise there. Because Jamil's gone down there, there's been a complete meltdown of the left. I believe the Pleb has a full video of people on X, but we're going to take a look at a panel on CTV where liberal pundits are melting down about this. It's so ridiculous that a guy goes down there and tries to help Canada, and this has become a big problem. But before we do that, we've got Bruce Anderson here. And just a little refresher here, Bruce Anderson launched Spark Advocacy with these two people, and also with his brothers invested in National News Watch. And Bruce Anderson's non-biological daughter is Kate Purchase, who used to be the director of communications in the Prime Minister's office for Justin Trudeau. And what does he have to say? This Jivani mission is a bad look for the Conservatives. It comes off as undermining their leader, an ego-driven publicity stunt with more than a hint of desperation that the White House would love to hear. Pierre Poilievre should shut it down or cut it loose. This is just another liberal that is terrified that maybe a deal comes from this. Maybe there's a framework of a deal, and then Carney's going to have to be like, oh no, we don't really want the deal. And it exposes his whole scheme here. And we do have some more updates here. We got Jivani meeting with JD Vance. He also talked with Donald Trump. He met with some other people, business leaders. We've got another one here, thanks to U.S. Trade Representative, for a candid discussion on CUSMA and the future Canada-U.S. trade. Interesting what will come from this.
Laura, everybody sounds there like, hey, no biggie, this is okay. You know what I mean? What do you make of Mr. Jivani kind of heading there on what appears to be, yes, briefed by Minister LeBlanc, doesn't appear to be like sent by the Conservative Party. So what do you think's up here?
Doesn't appear he was sent by anyone but himself. This is not without risk. We know that Donald Trump looks for cracks in governments and countries and political movements in other parts of the world, and then uses them to exploits them to get what he wants. And so an MP going down on his own with relationships that we all know about to try to talk on Canada's behalf without knowing what's happening behind the scenes really is not without risk here, and is something that Canadians should actually be concerned by. There does have to be a coordinated effort around this.
I'm concerned by this kind of rhetoric on national television, that it's a problem that we've got someone who's best friends with a vice president who's going to go try to get a deal to save our country. That's the problem here. You got boneheads like this saying we don't know what's being said behind closed doors. What's Carney saying behind closed doors? Like, why did they bring on these people? This is what people are watching and thinking, oh yeah, I guess I'm supposed to agree with this.
It's interesting because, and to be fair to Mr. Jivani, Jamie, for a while now, he's been saying, hey, I'm offering to do this. He spoke to my colleague Jeremy Charron at the Conservative Convention over the weekend and said, like, I've reached out to the Prime Minister's office. I've made overtures. I do have this relationship I could leverage. I am willing to do so. I haven't heard back. He obviously did hear from Minister LeBlanc. What do you think about kind of going it on your own?
It's probably a bit unique. I think a lot of people understandably have some skepticism as to whether or not this is Jamil Jivani being a team player or if this is just a Jamil Jivani comm stunt. I think when you look at the reality of that relationship, MPs go abroad down to the U.S. all the time, and normally it doesn't make news. The only reason this one really is because of his known quite close personal relationship with Vice President J.D. Vance. And so when you kind of look at how this story broke yesterday and to where all the parties are now in their messaging today, the general consensus seems to be like, why not? Like, we'll see where this goes. But I think everyone's going to wait and see. And I think for Jamil Jivani, here's a guy who has really kind of made a name for himself as someone with very strong opinions. He likes to engage in the culture war debates and has kind of really built his career on that. And he kind of almost reminds me of AOC when she first was elected to Congress, did really well in the socials, had a clear following in a constituency outside of her own actual district. But her ability to get things done in Congress and actually work with the levels of power to actually enact change and feel like you're accomplishing something beyond posting to social media took her a while. And so I think part of what you're seeing here is the maturation of Jamil Jivani. What comes out of that? Sometimes these meetings are literally just photo ops and essentially some dinner reservations on the side. And other times they're substantive. And so I think we'll need to see what the proof is in the receipts. But given that line of communication, we also know that with diplomatic channels, sometimes they're both are official and unofficial channels. And if this helps give the Canadian government access that they're otherwise shut out of in that orbit, I think it's probably potentially a net positive for Canada.
We already know that he not only spoke with J.D. Vance, but Donald Trump. So he's already getting progress more than Mark Carney is. It's interesting they opened this segment with this crazy liberal lady here talking about being concerned about Jamil going down there. And if you look at the title of this video, how concerning is Conservative MP Jamil Jivani's mission to Washington amidst trade negotiations? They just always do this stuff, fear-mongering. Why is it bad that somebody's trying to help save our country? Oh, that's right, because it's not the liberals.
I guess overall, you hope that he would meet with his friend, his old friend, J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, and that there would be something positive that emerges from that meeting. I know there's some, commentary out there that meeting did take place. We don't, like we said off the top, we reached out to his team. Hopefully we get a message back kind of confirming or establishing what meetings were taken. Sharon?
Going back to what they were saying, thinking that Pierre Poilievre didn't send him out there, all that, they're not going to come out and say Pierre Poilievre is sending out Jamil Jivani. It keeps the Conservatives in a position of power because otherwise they'll just attack Pierre for that. If Pierre doesn't mention it, they can't go after him at all. I mean, they can ask his opinion, but it doesn't give them any ammo.
Your thoughts on the trip in general and the potential out of it?
I really want to say that this was done in some sort of good faith to try to come to some agreement between our two countries. But this is clearly nothing but a PR stunt. This is purely for the cameras. It's purely for the exposure. And it's purely a tactic that Jamil Jivani is using. He does not speak for the government. He does not represent the government. He is not part of any negotiating team. And we know that he has this relationship. It's no secret that he has this relationship, but he has not proven himself to be someone who is willing to put aside politics to do what is best for the country. So politics.
She can take every word she just said and apply it to herself. She's out here speaking for the government on national television. Who put her here? Why is she speaking on here? Look at her resume here on LinkedIn. Communications professional, problem solver. Look at this here, crisis manager. She's creating crisis by putting out this propaganda on media every single week. You scroll down to her experience, political commentator, CTV, also political commentator for 3 years on CBC. And we go down further Further, what does she have? Deputy Chief of Staff and Director of Operations for Bill Morneau. Office of the Minister of Finance as Bill Morneau for 4 years, a Liberal Party of Canada. She's horribly partisan, and all her takes on here, they're not based in any sort of reality. They're never fair. It's just pushing out Liberal talking points and stirring up fear.
This is always going to come first. He is a member of the opposition party, so whatever helps him is purely for a PR stunt here. Now, I think that there is merit in having relationships with counterparts in the government, but not when it's at the risk of politicizing it so that it backfires in some way, shape, or form. So this was not sanctioned by the government. This is purely a PR stunt.
It's interesting because I am old enough to remember, Sebastian, the first round of NAFTA negotiations where there were, premiers and members of parliament, all sorts of different people from different backgrounds who were making an effort to present the Team Canada case. But at the time, it also was coordinated. So I sort of see both sides of this coin. I'm not sure why the government has decided not to lean on the relationship that he has or try and exploit it and I don't mean that in a negative way, but try to leverage it to some use. At the same time, it is interesting that one would go there when the stakes are so high without the backing of so-called Team Canada.
Want to say or reject the premise really Sharon had laid out. I think Mr. Jivani explained in a 5-minute long video about why it is that he is going down to the States and, how it is that he wants to kind of inflict some positive change in that relationship. We all know that politics are a relationship sport. They're based on who you know, how well you know them. And so it is a pretty good card to have in your deck, to have been the roommate of the now vice president, who is, in our understanding, involved intimately in a lot of President Trump's decision making. I'll also point out, of course, that Mr. Jivani represents a community that has been badly affected by the shortcomings of the prime minister in being able to secure a deal. We just saw GM, the Oshawa plant there, announce hundreds of workers that they plan to lay off. I think this is a kind of his response is one to be patriotic, is one to advocate for those workers. Yes, he is not a member of the governing party, but that does not mean that he is not obviously concerned about his constituents and the impact of the lack of action on this very important file by the federal government and how that's affecting his community.
Yeah, and they keep attacking him, saying, oh, he's not the international trade minister, this, that, and the other. Who cares? If he can get a deal, who cares? To use Mark Carney's own words, but they care because they don't want a deal to be had. If a deal comes out of this, then Carney's screwed. There's no more boogeyman.